Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Paribrajakacharya Sotara Sata Shishimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Shaimakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Garanga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We're at a month and a time in the world that is the March of 1966. At this time, Indira Gandhi is preparing to come and visit America because there's a crisis in India. In 1965 and 1966, there were droughts, particularly in Bihar and eastern UP, which affected the entire country, northern and eastern country. So Indira Gandhi, having just recently become the Prime Minister, she was following in the footsteps of her father. And her father was, from the time that he had been the Prime Minister, he was trying to industrialize India. India was always an agrarian country, and even the British, in the hundreds of years that they colonized India, they weren't interested in industrializing. They saw that it was agrarian. There were so many grains coming. They used cotton, everything they could out of the natural resources of India, they stripped from the country. So the new government, the Indian government, they were interested in making industry. And the industry was not for the people, it was for the government. It was government-controlled industry. It wasn't that the people, nowadays we can have our own individual companies and develop things, but the industries and the control was coming from the government. So when there was a crisis, crisis means no rain. When there's no rain, then there's no food. And then the people die of starvation. So they didn't have any backup because they weren't developing in that department. So then the nation started to look for help outside of India. And because of the constant friction between India and Pakistan, and the Cold War going on around the world between the communists and the capitalists, despite the fact that India was leaning towards socialism and communism, Indira Gandhi had to take the help of the rich countries, particularly America. So she was coming to ask for help. And even Prabhupada was supposed to meet her. But his mission was completely different. She had come just to beg for grains. So while Prabhupada was doing everything possible to get his assistance from India, India was not in the position to give help to others. They needed help. So the money, you'll see, we'll find out later within this month, how Indira Gandhi, just to satisfy the nations that she needed help from, she cut the value of the rupee right in half, and she started accepting different ways for green production in India, how to increase the production of grains with new techniques. So she was out begging. I remember when I was a teenager, I went to a drama, a play where you go to in the theater. And I didn't know it because I was a child, a kid. It was a political drama. And in the drama, they had someone playing Indira Gandhi, who I had never heard of, because we never heard about India in America. And Indira Gandhi was portrayed as she was going to the different national leaders, and she's saying, "I'm so hungry, I could eat anything." And this is the first I had ever heard of Indira Gandhi. And that was the portrayal of India at that time. Because there were 6 or 7 famines during the English control. They were man-made famines. Not because the country wasn't producing, it was because everything that was being produced was being taken out of the country and sent to England. So the people were starving, millions upon millions. Forget about the 6 million people who died in the World War II. We're talking about 11 million people who died in one famine, 7 million people, especially in Bengal, because that was where the rice was all being grown. So they would just take all the rice out of Bengal and the people would starve to death, just piling them up on top of each other and burning them. So they thought, okay, the British are gone, we're going to develop the country, but they didn't develop they developed industrially. So then the next famine came, and it was just at this time, 1965, the first drought. They couldn't grow anything. And then again, 1966, the second drought. And that was when the crisis came, and Indira Gandhi was coming to America. So India was not in good shape. They tried to bring themselves up. Now it's successful, because we'll find out at the end of the class how Prabhupada, he understood the philosophy that's made India successful now. So, we're on March 15th. The sunrise, the sunset, it's Navami. Today, no letter received, and Joan requested to pick up the books from Paragons. She agreed to do it tomorrow because Prabhupada was storing his books there at the Paragon bookshop. Whenever he had to sell books, he would take from the list there. We saw last week the very exact inventory Prabhupada was keeping of the give and take. Today, no letter received, deposited in the bank, $25, no other expenditure. So Prabhupada was very carefully. He had a bank account there at 72nd Street in the First Continental Bank, something like that. And later we'll see how carefully Prabhupada was keeping his accounts. I just found in the book, aside from this diary, Prabhupada had an account book that he was keeping. This is called double entry. Double entry book. Double entry, exactly. Double entry book. What is received and what is paid and what the balance is. And Prabhupada would keep this very meticulously. And when Prabhupada made his first temple on 22nd Avenue, Gargamuni, he was the first treasurer. His brother was the first president. Gargamuni was the first treasurer. And Prabhupada taught him how to do this double entry accounting. And Gargamuni learned from Prabhupada how to become so miserly. The money would come in, but it wouldn't go out. So Prabhupada, in the same way, Prabhupada was spending 13 cents, 70 cents, but he was depositing in the bank big amounts, $25 today. No other expenditure. In the evening, 5 ladies, this is a Tuesday, this is an off day for Prabhupada. And still, Prabhupada was getting 5 ladies and gentlemen visited there were some talks. These are informal talks. He wouldn't give his classes on those days. Mrs. LeBlanc, who Prabhupada was really counting on, came at the end after Dr. Mishra's meeting. Now she is losing interest since she has learned that Bhagavad Gita does not support monism. No income today. Because on the Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, because they were informal meetings, Prabhupada said that no donation was required. Just Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because Prabhupada, I also found out the archives had sent me the full, every single lecture, every single kirtan that Prabhupada ever did. They sent me to that, they gave that to me as a gift because we had invited the archives to come to completely museumize Prabhupada's house by deacidifying and by checking, or categorizing everything that we had of Prabhupada's. So we paid the ticket for the devotee in charge of the archives, his name is Param Rupa, for him to come here and do all of this very scientific work to preserve Prabhupada's memorandums. So as a gift, they gave us this full collection. So it turns out that we have, from this time, the lectures that Prabhupada was giving. And I have, I don't know how to get to it, but let's see. All right, where's Prabhuji? Is he here? Okay, I'll just give you a sample here. I hope we can play it.
He's coming.
He's coming, all right. This is... कोई आवाज आ सकते है इस पर? This is one of the first bhajans that Prabhupada sang. We heard that in February, Srila Prabhupada had, the first recording that he did was the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. Now it's March. And in March, Prabhupada has started the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita classes. And we go through them. If anyone wants to hear them, I can give you copies. Ate? Output. Yeah. All right, well, we might have to do it next week. I'll bring it on some other device. Ne? Okay, so then Prabhupada, because he was getting no response from his letters, he was writing to Padampat Singhania, no response. He had written now 2 letters to Sumati Morarji, no response. And it was also around this time that the government decided to take over all of the shipping companies. Okay. He's ready. Okay, Abu. Now we'll go back to this. Full, yes, another full. So, on the days when Prabhupada wasn't having his classes, he started to, and we still have those, because Prabhupada kept them very carefully. And then after Prabhupada, Gargamuni was in charge. Many of the films and the recordings that we have That's all by the kindness, the grace of Gargamuni that was later given to the archives. So this is a short description of why Mrs. LeBlanc became uninterested in Prabhupada's philosophy, just so that we can understand the difference between Vaishnavism and monism. This is from the Bhagavad Gita. The pure devotee is never puffed up like the non-devotee class of men who falsely think that they are God. It is astonishing to see how a person who is being kicked by the laws of the Lord's illusory energy at every step can falsely think of becoming one with the Lord. Such thinking is the last snare of the illusory energy offered to the conditioned soul. The first illusion is that he wants to become Lord of the material world by accumulating wealth and power. But when he is frustrated in that attempt, he wants to become one with the Lord. So both becoming the most powerful man in the material world and desiring to become one with the Lord are different illusory snares. So Prabhupada calls this most successful becoming happy in the material world, becoming the Lord of everything I purvey. So now I'll become the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world by merging into the Lord's personality and losing my own personality. Because I was a failure, now I'll become great by becoming God. So because this monism was being taught, and in our preaching sometimes we might meet some monists, some impersonalists. And it's a little scary because they believe that whatever they're doing is their lila. Until they get a toothache and they have to run to the dentist. But they're taught by their gurus to think that we're God, everything we're doing is our lila, it's for our enjoyment, and therefore they can get away with practically everything because they're above the rules. They're God. So this is, Prabhupada calls this the last snare. We had heard a lot about Joan many weeks ago. She was the one who used to drive Prabhupada to the Ananda ashram. And we also saw her, she kind of led, after Dr. Mishra left this world, she kind of continued the ashram. She was like the mother of the ashram. So she was very influential and loved Prabhupada. She saw him, she once asked if she could embrace him in Prabhupada. So she really had a fatherly concept of Srila Prabhupada. It filled up her whole car from MS Paragon Book Gallery. The books are brought and kept in stock. No letter received, no expenditure. In the evening there was meeting. The attendance was 3 only, income $3, only by contribution. Because 3 people, that means they each donated $1 each. Thursday, 17th March, Ekadasi. Today, rent for the month of March 15th to April 14th, 1 month paid in advance to S.N. Pelchis, landlord, by money drawing from the bank. Received letter from Salvation Army Finance Secretary. At once went to see him. The result is favorable by the grace of the Lord. The Finance Secretary has agreed to accept at 4.80. He's writing to London office for confirmation. So as things are getting brighter on this side, things are becoming darker on the other side. Expenditure bus fare 30 cents and envelopes. In the evening, 2 ladies and 1 gentleman, Mr. Tone, came to see me. There were some discussions. Now you see how Prabhupada, starting from nothing and being at the mercy of an impersonalist guru, with Prabhupada's own persona, with his own teachings, with the beauty of his kirtan and his lectures, he's drawing people away, actually, from Dr. Mishra's group. They're the ones that are coming to see Prabhupada. So there's something lacking in the impersonal discussions that they're finding in Prabhupada and coming to him. Even on the off nights, they come to speak to him. So this is the wonderful letter from the Salvation Army. Dear Sir, this will acknowledge your letter of March 5th, 1966, in connection with the possibility of the Salvation Army paying you American dollars and having you release an equivalent amount of Indian currency for the Salvation Army work in India. It is noted that you will need $200,000 immediately for starting your work here in New York. The Salvation Army in America rarely sends money directly to India, and therefore would hardly be in a position to help you establish a preaching center in America for the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the event, however, that an occasion might arise, what would be the basis of the rate of exchange? We understand that there is the official bank rate, and there are other rates available to us, which are legal, but which provide more funds in Indian currency than would be provided by the official bank rate. Sincerely yours, Financial Secretary. So as soon as Prabhupada got this letter, he got on the bus, he went to the national headquarters and spoke to the financial minister, Mr. Martin, and they came to a deal, $480. Now I think that there's some reading here, because Satsvarup Maharaj only put in about every 2 weeks entries. All right. So we read about on March 4th, because we started today March 4th, and we ended last week on March 4th, where Prabhupada received a letter completely discouraging from the Prime Minister's office, saying the Prime Minister has seen your letter, February 8th. She appreciates the spirit which prompted you to carry the spiritual message of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to other countries. Owing to the critical foreign exchange situation, because now we're understanding a little better what's going on in India at this time, which the country is facing, it is greatly regretted that it will not be possible to assist you from here in your plan to set up a Radha Krishna temple. Indira Gandhi was canvassing all the major nations, please give us your grains. And they were in no position whatsoever to help with cultural programs and development outside of the country. But Prabhupada had other hopes. After writing to the Prime Minister, he had written again to Tirtha Maharaj. Again and again, Prabhupada is trying the same people, trying to cultivate them, just if there's a little spark, asking him to request Dr. Radhakrishnan to persuade the government to sanction the release of funds. He waited for 1 month. No answer. Apparently, his godbrothers felt little obligation toward preaching in America. He had written that he needed encouragement from them to continue in America because it was so expensive. He had explained that he was spending the equivalent of 1,000 rupees a month. As such, I am counting every day to receive your favorable replies. But there was no reply. Not even did they reply to Prabhupada's letters, what to speak of assist him in any way. So the next entry is March 18th. So we're just caught up now. March 17th, Mr. Martin, the finance secretary seen today personally, requested him to 4.8 per dollar in exchange. He formally agreed and will get it confirmed from sender and let me know finally. It is good news. Because with the little bit of the practically no exchange of money between India and America, this would also help the Salvation Army in India, because they were doing so much food distribution, so much education, so much conversion. They needed money also. And they couldn't get their money in and out as well. So the two religious groups, like the left and the right hand washing each other, they were trying to help each other. Prabhupada would give the example of the lame man and the blind man. The lame man, he can't walk. The blind man, he can't see. So you put the lame man on the shoulders of the blind man, and the lame man tells the blind man which way to walk. So here we have the Salvation Army. They're trying to press on God consciousness in India. We have Prabhupada in America trying to press on Krishna consciousness. They meet together and they're helping each other now, or the plan is such. Not that it actually happened. But Prabhupada at least is getting some success in America now. So now March 18th. We'll see what Satsvarupa Maharaj has written. He wrote again to Sir Padampat Singhania. We'll read this letter now. Requesting him to send a man from India to supervise work on the temple in New York, as Mr. Singhania had previously suggested. There is no record of any reply to this request. Prabhupada wrote again to Sumati Morarji, requesting her to please send him a mridanga to accompany his chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So you'll, just as we heard in the Chintamani prayers, there was no mridanga. Prabhupada brought his kartals, that's all. And you can hear in his voice the loneliness, the direct, how he's really singing to the Supreme Lord in these prayers, because he's all alone when he's singing. He had written, He also requested her that in the future, when he would send many men from India, that never happened, she obliged by giving them free passage on Scindia steamship lines. No reply. This is now the third letter that Prabhupada has written to her. The last two letters were not replied. As his financial situation became more urgent and his hopes more strained, his support from India withdrew in silence. His unanswered correspondence was itself a kind of message, loud and clear. Quote, "We cannot help you." Although no one encouraged him, Srila Prabhupada trusted in the order of his spiritual master and the will of Krishna. The word from the Prime Minister regarding government sanction had been a definite no. But he had received another extension of his visa. America was opening their arms to Prabhupada. Now his last hope was Sir Padampat Singhania. Prabhupada knew that he was so influential, a man in India, that if he wanted, he could send the money. He was Prabhupada's final hope. So Mr. Padampat Singhania, even before the independence, was so successful as an industrialist that he was even made a knight by the English government. He had knighthood. That's why he's called Sir Padampat Singhania. And afterwards, of course, he maintained, because by that time he and his family had their fingers in every single aspect of industry in India. They were very successful, and because they were devotees of Dwarkadish, they used their money to also to build temples, just as the Birlas did. The Birlas, they had cement. So they would take their cement and build cement temples all over India. You go down on Mathura Road, the whole complex of the temple is made out of cement. All of their temples are made out of cement because that was what they dealt with. Yeah. So they used their cement in the service of the Lord. And Padampat Singhania did the same thing with all of the industries, steel, textile, everything else that his family had charge of in India. So now, Satsvarupa Maharaj doesn't have any entries until April 2nd. So we have about 2 weeks to catch up on between the next entry. We'll try to do as much as we can in a half an hour, because actually a lot happened during this time that wasn't known when the Lilamrita was written. So here's what Prabhupada writes about the 18th of March. It was Dwadasi. Today one letter received from Chandrasekhar. That was the assistant who was helping him get his passport extension in Delhi. He encourages to stay in America at least for 3 years. God bless him. There are some good sales of Srimad Bhagavatam, he reports. So from the Delhi side, Bombay side, very little interest. Delhi side, there was interest. And even here in Vrindavan, from the Harinam Press, Shamlal Hakim, he was distributing Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gitas. So where there were religious people, there were sales. 2 letters posted as follows. 1 letter to Sir Parampat Singhania, 1 letter to Shrimati Sumati Murarji. Dr. Mishra made a bad remark on Tilak and Kanti. He commits offenses. I do not know when he will come to his real sense. So we have to remember that Dr. Mishra, he was coming from Kashi. He was raised as a Kashi Brahmin. And sometimes it's an eternal conflict sometimes between the Monists and the Vaishnavas, the Shivites and the Vaishnavites. So even here, 10,000 miles away, this friction was going on. Why the tilak? Why you have to wear the kanti? Because they don't understand what this Vaishnavism is all about, the importance of Tulsi, the importance of Gopi Chandan. So Prabhupada had to tolerate these offenses because Mr. Mishra was assisting him. And he tried his best. And what was the secret weapon? Prasadam. He was feeding Dr. Mishra every day. And still, he couldn't get rid of his offensive mentality. No expenditure, income by contribution, $4. So this was a Friday night. It means he had four donors. Tonight, 5 ladies and gentlemen attended the meeting from 7 p.m. to 9:15, and 15 minutes talks. Kirtan and lectures on the Bhagavad Gita performed. Now we have the letter, desperate letter to Prabhupada, what he called the last hope, to Sir Padampat Singhania ji. On that day, Prabhupada wrote it. Please accept my greetings and blessings of Sri Sri Dwarkadish Maharaj. I hope by Lord's grace everything is all right with you. Now, as referred to my last letter of January 20th, so there was a 2-month gap not hearing, I am very glad to inform you that by the grace of Lord Dwarkadish, there is now some definite arrangement for dollar exchange in India. Because in that last letter that Padampat Singhani wrote to Prabhupada, he had 2 contentions. One is how to get the money out of India. And 2 is it had to be a genuine Radha Krishna temple and not a building with a chakra on top. So Prabhupada was solving these 2 problems right now in this letter. As I told you before, the matter was entrusted to 2 responsible gentlemen in India. One is my godbrother, Sripad B.V. Tirtha Maharaj, the president of Chaitanya Research Institute, Calcutta. And the other is one influential officer in the All India Congress Committee in New Delhi. That was Surya Kumar Joshi, who was trying to help Prabhupada, even wanted to come to America to help him. Both of them are very responsible men, and they are trying very sincerely to their best capacity to get the exchange sanctioned. But till now, there is no hopeful signal from both of them. So in the meantime, I negotiated with the authorities of the great missionary organization, namely the Salvation Army Incorporated. The finance secretary of the great organization writes as follows in his letter dated 14. Quote, "This will acknowledge your letter of March 5th, 1966 in connection with the possibility of the Salvation Army paying you American dollars and having you release an equivalent amount." So we just read that letter. The Salvation Army in America rarely sends money directly to India. In the event, however, that an occasion might arise, what would be the basis? So this letter is just a duplicate of what we just read. On receipt of the letter from the Salvation Army as quoted above, I saw the finance secretary of the very great organization, and I talked with him very freely and frankly. I convinced him that our Radha Krishna temple will be similar missionary preaching center for God consciousness and there is no question of business profit. We want to spend here for the benefit of the American people, as you are spending in India. It is mutual cooperation for spreading the idea of God consciousness in the world when there is very great necessity for it. The usual black market exchange is rupees $7 per dollar, but I have convinced him to accept rupees 480. And by the grace of Lord Dwarkadish, he has agreed. So the difficulty of exchange, as referred to in your letter of 14th January 1966, is now solved. Now you can send your man immediately for beginning the work as suggested in my last letter. I asked you to send me the name of the man whom you want to send for this purpose, so that I could arrange for the no objection certificate from the local Indian Consulate General. But now you have to send the name immediately for sponsoring him. Please therefore immediately take steps in the matter and let me know the result per return of post. Prabhupada was like a tidal wave. He was ready to do everything. No response. I am counting every moment for starting the temple of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. And here is the opportunity now, which we must utilize without delay. Please therefore reply this letter immediately, per return of post, and oblige. By the by, kindly let me know if you have received my book, Srimad Bhagavatam, from my Delhi office. I have information from Delhi that they have already sent you the books, as I have already informed you in my last letter, page 3, paragraph 5. Hope you are well and awaiting your reply. Thanking you once more, yours sincerely. So these letters that Prabhupada wrote, these are in the archives that were sent to us. And Prabhupada, he just pours his heart out in his letters. And this is how we learn not only the sincerity, but the unflinching determination of Srila Prabhupada to make this mission a success in America, despite no reply, no response, no interest, no enthusiasm, nothing from the other side. Still he's writing letter after letter, trying to encourage these people. Now this is Prabhupada's letter to Sumati Murarji, who also has not replied his last 2 letters. Madam Sumati Murarji Bhai Sabji, please accept my greetings and the blessings of Lord Bala Krishna. So you notice how whoever they worship, Prabhupada will convey the blessings to them. Dwarkadish, Bal Krishna. I hope by the grace of Lord Sri Krishna everything is well with you. Since I received your last letter of October 9th, 1965, I was very much encouraged when you wrote to say, I feel that you should stay there till you fully recover from your illness and return only after you have completed your mission. I think these lines dictated by you are the words of Lord Bal Krishna expressed through your goodness. Now, remember, Prabhupada was probably not aware of this, but the government was taking over the shipping company at that time. They were in great loss. Government was taking over all shipping, and their company was practically falling apart. You will be pleased to know that I have improved my health to the normal and my missionary work is nicely progressing. I hope my project to start a temple of Sri Sri Radha Krishna in New York will also be realized by the grace of the Lord. Sir Padampat Singhania of Kanpur JK Organization has kindly agreed to construct a nice temple of Sri Sri Radha Krishna in New York. Now you see how Prabhupada, he's taking the enthusiasm of one person to enthuse another person. Meanwhile, nothing's happening. It's all on paper. I'm trying to solve the exchange problem by all means, and I'm seeing some light for this purpose also. Since I came down to New York from Butler, Pennsylvania, I've rented the above room at $70 per month, and I'm delivering lectures on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, accompanied by Sankirtan, and the American ladies and gentlemen come to hear me. You will be surprised to know that they do not understand the language of the Sankirtan, and yet they hear with attention. This is the wonderful transcendental nature of sound vibration. Even they don't understand, they're still getting purified. And they're attracted. They keep coming again and again, even though they can't understand. The movement which I have started here is completely new to them, because the Americans are generally acquainted with the Indian yoga gymnastics, as it is performed by some Indian yogis here. They never heard of Bhakti Cult or the science of Krishna before, and still they are hearing me. This very idea is a great success for me. Now I shall require some Sankirtan instruments from India, and 3 men to assist me in my missionary activities. And if the temple is started, I have to bring many things from India. And I wish that you may kindly arrange for free conveyance of my men and goods in this connection. I have already asked one of my devotees in Calcutta to send 2 mridungas for Sankirtan, and I advised him to deposit the same with your manager in Calcutta for carriage to New York by any one of your ships. Prabhupada, in advance, he had asked Tirtha Maharaj to arrange for this and keep them there at the shipping dock for the ship to bring to New York. Kindly issue instructions to your manager in Calcutta and Cochin to carry my things as above mentioned free, and oblige. In India, when I started for America, your goodness promised to reply my letter regularly, but I have not received replies for my 2 letters. Please therefore see that my letters addressed to you may be duly replied. I have come here in this old age, neither for sightseeing nor for any personal interest. It is for the interest of the entire humanity, which it certainly was, because here we are sitting today. We're the humanity that Prabhupada has saved and brought back to Godhead. That I am trying to implement the science of Krishna, which will actually make them happy. So who's happy here? See, Prabhupada's mission was successful. I have every devotee of Lord Krishna to help me by all means. And that's what we're doing. We're all trying to help Prabhupada in his mission. Kindly reply this letter and oblige. Hope you are well. Kindly convey my good wishes to all your staff, especially to Sarvashri Manchokshi, Nagarajam, and Acharya. They were Prabhupada's neighbors when he was living in Andheri, in their colony there. Thanking you once more. Yours sincerely in the service of the Lord, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So here we have, this particular account is a little different. This is just what Prabhupada was depositing in his bank account and what he was taking out. You see a lot of deposits and a little bit of withdrawals. The first withdrawal was that one that Prabhupada wrote about. He had to pay $70 for the advance 1 month. After that, $15, and then $100 for the passport, $65. So Prabhupada was mostly depositing and very rarely withdrawing. These are the whole month of March. I just took these out for us to see how meticulous, up to the last penny, 69 cents and 84 cents. So this is the example that we should all try to inculcate in our lives. This understanding that Lakshmi belongs to Krishna, everything should be used in Krishna's service. Not 1 farthing, as Prabhupada said, should be wasted. And Prabhupada followed that example. Every day his entries are there. Income, outgo. And income is far exceeding the outgoing. Saturday, 19th March. Today I was to go to ashram, but Yolanda did not go. So I also could not go. Yolanda was one of the young men. He was supposed to take Prabhupada. He didn't go. So Prabhupada prepared that Chintamani tape that we just heard. Income, $1. Saturday, because Saturday was not a teaching day. No expenditure. I'm sorry, Sunday, March 20th. Some 4 gentlemen and ladies came to see me. We talked for some time. They have given their addresses. No income and no expenditure. So these ladies and gentlemen, it's like a chain reaction. One person is attracted. For instance, Harvey Cohen, he was attracted. He went down to the restaurant in Greenwich Village, told all of his friends. They started traveling all the way from the Lower East Side, coming up to the Central Park West to see Prabhupada. That's about 45-minute subway ride. What to speak of a bus ride, it would take an hour and a half in traffic. Coming all the way uptown to hear these lectures of Srila Prabhupada. So one person was telling their friends were telling their friends, and in that way, more and more unknown people who Prabhupada had never met personally, they were suddenly showing up in Prabhupada's little room to talk to him about yoga and about bhakti and about Krishna and Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada was just alone in his room, but the word was going out all over New York City through this chain reaction. So these are, in the month of March, the lectures that were salvaged, that we still have in the archives. And it goes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like three days in a month, in a week, and then another 3 days. But then suddenly there's a gap between the 11th and the 25th. So as we read on, we'll find out why there was a gap. When people didn't show up, when only 1 or 2 person came, Prabhupada wouldn't record the lecture. So, at least we have these in this month. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 lectures in the month of March, 1966. Very interesting lectures. You should all, if anyone wants to get a copy, I'm happy to copy them for you. I can send them on WhatsApp, or you can give me a pen drive, so that we can understand how Prabhupada was training these young first visitors. 21st March, Pratipat. No letter received today. One invitation through Dr. Mishra received for attending lectures of Indira Gandhi on 1st April. So this is when Indira Gandhi was coming to Washington to meet, I think at that time the president was Mr. Johnson, Lyndon Baines Johnson. And the American government was playing diplomacy with India. Because India was a democracy, but India desperately needed help. But India was also pro-Soviet. And this is the time of the Cold War between Russia and America. And just like 2 magnets, the countries were being lined up. Who was supporting the Soviet Union and who was supporting America? So President Johnson, he was using, there were unlimited amount of grains that America could send to India. Because what America did was, America produces so many grains, but they have to, if you put so many grains in the market, the price goes all the way down. And America wanted to protect the farmers, just like they have this now. They set a price for wheat, and nobody can sell under that price. No matter how much wheat there is, they're not allowed to undersell, otherwise the farmers starve. So in America, the price was set so high, and there was so much abundance of extra wheat that they would throw it into the ocean, just so the people would be able to get that high rate of the grains. So they had the grains. They could have given freely. But the president wanted India to come to the side of America and break relations with the Soviet Union. So they were dangling that help in front of the nose of India, that no, you have to come to our side. We don't like it that you are siding with the Soviets. Such diplomacy. That's all we can say. And therefore, every month, although they were sanctioning it, Mr. Johnson would stop it until he saw some action on the Indian side. So therefore, Indira Gandhi finally decided, I have to come to America. I have to agree to all of what they want from us, because we need America's help. And she did. She came here. She agreed to all of the policies that the U.S. government was demanding of India. And what were they demanding? They wanted India, instead of industrialization, they wanted to increase India's agriculture production so they could feed themselves. There's a saying, if you give a man a plate of rice today, he'll be able to eat for one day. But if you teach him how to grow rice, then he can eat rice for the rest of his life. So India, yes, they could give the help, but they didn't want to give that type of help. They wanted to uplift the country so they could become self-sufficient. And Indira Gandhi agreed to that, and she had professionals come back, teach different methods of different types of planting that wasn't going, because India was, as we are to this day, we're completely dependent on the monsoon. If the monsoon doesn't come, we can't grow anything. So then within that time, they built dams, they built irrigation systems, and all these things, so that India, even if the monsoon doesn't come, the whole country doesn't starve. And this is what America was trying to force India to do, so that they could become self-sufficient. So she agreed to all that. So the aid was coming then, and despite the famines that were going on, the droughts that were going on, America reluctantly was giving the help to a nation that was not actually pro-American. And that came up later when the Pakistan and Indian friction came. I'm sorry we're talking about politics, but this all had to do with Prabhupada's mission, because he wasn't getting help from India for a reason, because they needed help. So that's the way it was right now. So Indira Gandhi is coming in April. If somebody takes me, then I shall go. Already Indira Gandhi refused to help Prabhupada, so what was the purpose? I distributed prasadam to all at Dr. Mishra's apartment, and here he was purifying all the impersonalists with the prasadam. Prabhupada, despite the fact that Dr. Mishra was offending Srila Prabhupada, he was also helping Srila Prabhupada and giving him facility to come in contact with the students, and the students were responding to Prabhupada. In the evening there was meeting. 5 ladies and gentlemen attended. Gita explained about individuality of living entities. So let's just go back and see March 21st. Yeah, you see, we don't have that lecture, unfortunately. 22nd, 2 letters received as follows. One from the mayor's office in New York City. Prabhupada, he did not hesitate. He went right to the top. Prabhupada wanted to meet the mayor of New York. Run from the United States Navigation regarding Jaladuta. 1 letter to the United States Navigation replied. In the evening, 2 gentlemen and lady came, discussed for some time. No income and no expenditure. So just the fact that people were coming on the off days, it means that they were searching. They were really in need of Prabhupada's association. They would even come to his little room when he wasn't having classes just to talk to him. Wednesday, March 23rd. 1 letter of mayor's office replied, informed that I shall wait to see Mr. Lindsay, the mayor, till he is free to talk with me. 1 letter sent, because Prabhupada was used to doing that in India. He went right to the president. He went right to the prime minister and gave them his books. So he would wait until the mayor was ready to see him. 1 letter sent to the Director Library of Congress, Washington, D.C., asking for the library card number of my Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in America, just like we have ISBN now, which is a number that's generated and it's used all over the world, International Book Serial Number. So in America, we have the Library of Congress, and they would give a number. And with that number, then, you could put into all the libraries and all the schools in America. So Prabhupada wanted to get that number for his books. Joan paid me $5 contribution. Thanks. In the doctor's apartment, there were 10 to 11 members, and I cooked for all of them. Today's meeting, only 2 gentlemen attended, therefore I did not record the speeches. So on the 23rd, 21st he didn't record, 23rd also he didn't record. No expenditure. Then on the 25th, Prabhupada did record. No letter received today. It is understood that SS Jaladuta is on the New York port. Mr. Forrester could not be contacted on phone. Message left for conveying to Captain Pandya. He may come today to visit Prabhupada. The temple house is seemed to be occupied. Means Prabhupada was still walking by his dream temple. Do not know whether sold or rent out. I am mortified. So another dream crushed. Let Lord Sri Krishna's wish may be fulfilled, but it is a great shock to me if it is now gone to others. Yes, we saw in previous weeks, it went to a yoga society, all these different things that because many other people were seeing that building and seeing the great facilities that it had. It became a restaurant, it became the hot yoga center, but it didn't become the first temple of Krishna consciousness as Prabhupada dreamed. There was meeting today, 3 ladies and 3 gentlemen, besides the captain and his wife, attended the meeting. Mr. Robert brought some fruits and grains for me. No income, no expenditure, being a Thursday. Friday. Today, 1 letter received from Vrindavan Chandra Day, Prabhupada's youngest son, Calcutta, India. Meeting in the evening, 7 ladies and gentlemen attended the meeting. Captain and Mrs. Pandya also were there. Income, $22. So probably the Pandyas must have given a nice donation. Everyone brought some fruits and grains. There were 2 newcomers. Addresses taken. So Prabhupada would keep record of all of the people who were visiting him. In all of our temples, we used to have a visitor's book, and we would have the new guests fill them in. We also had one here. That was how we started our Bhishma department. We would have anyone who came into the temple. It wasn't like now with the, you can't even get into the temple, there's so many people. But whoever visited, we would have them fill up their names and addresses, and then we started our mailings to them. It's very early days, the 1980s, we started that. Our first mail out was 1989, Ram Nomi. Yes. 2,000 letters. Now, how many letters are you sending out? 3,000. Per day, 3,000 letters. Just see how things magnify when you're sincere. Today, when I came back from Dr. Mishra's apartment at 1 p.m., I saw my window on the door broken. And entering the door, I saw my tape recorder, typewriter, and books bag stolen. A separate note is written in this connection. At 2 p.m., Mrs. Labange came to take me to the ashram, and I went there. The whole thing was upset. Purchased 1 bottle of sour salt. So this was the day, Saturday, March 26th, that someone broke there's a little transit window above the door, because it wasn't an apartment, it was an office room that Prabhupada was living in, with a glass door and a little glass thing on top. So they broke into that, went in, took Prabhupada's typewriter and his tape recorder and his book bag and left. And Prabhupada didn't stay. He went to Ananda Ashram with Mrs. LeBlanc that day. Today, whole day I was in the ashram, and I came back in the evening, 6:30. At 9 in the night, Dr. Mishra, Mrs. Jones, Miss Ella, Miss Yolanda, oh, Yolanda's a woman, I'm sorry, and others all came to see the condition of my room. All of them are of the opinion that the superintendent has a hand in this mischief. I spent the night at the studio, so Prabhupada didn't stay the night in his room, 307. He went up to 501, the windowless room of the studio. One Mr. Howard of 71st Street became acquainted with me. He appears to be a good friend. Monday, 28th March. We'll stop here because it's after 7 o'clock, and we'll continue to the end of the month next week. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai.